activity based costing. So we have seen how the values of overheads or the cost of overhead is going to change if we use different methods. And what we say that activity based costing is more accurate than traditional costing system. Getting this? So if we use the activity based costing, that time we will allocate overheads to the respective cost center with higher efficiency or with accurate cost, so that it will be possible to that particular department to calculate the total cost of production, and it will also help to decide the selling price of your product. That's why nowadays, due to changes in production level, due to changes in uh, uh, the varieties of products, nowadays production system or manufacturing system is becoming complex, everyday complex and complex. That's why it is very much important to use the activity based costing, because it will give us exact result, and it also help us to identify which are the value added activities and which are the not non value added activities. So by identifying non-value added activities, we will skip these activities, and it will help us to reduce the cost of production or to reduce the cost of sale. So unnecessary activities which will identified with the help of this activity based costing. So that we had studied in the last lecture, how we can allocate the overheads, direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses. We will allocate directly to the respective product. But what about the overheads? So overheads means what? This is the indirect cost. This cost belongs to supportive departments which are working in the organization. Now the cost of this supportive department, once again we have to allocate to the production centers. Now, to allocate this cost of supportive departments, that is called as indirect cost, to the respective production departments, we have two methods. That is the traditional costing technique and activity-based costing technique. So if we use activity-based costing technique, that time we will make this allocation very much accurate. So this is the benefit of or the advantages of activity-based costing. So nowadays, almost 99% limited, private limited and public limited companies are using this activity based costing, and those who are the sole proprietorship firm or trading firms or new emerging firm, they can use the traditional costing technique. So if we use the traditional costing technique, at that time we can have very limited cost centers like labor hours, machinery hours, or sale volume. On that basis, I can allocate the indirect cost. But if we use activity based costing, that time you have multiple cost drivers like material cost, labor hours, ordering cost, then activities like finishing, turning, machining, then inspection. So these are the certain activities we can identify, and on the basis of these activities we can identify the cost drivers for each and every activity. So that is the advantage of activity based costing technique that we had studied in the last lecture. Now what are the steps in activity based costing? When we try to implement activity based costing, that time which technique or which steps I need to follow? First is we have to identify the major activities that pertain to the manufacture of specific product. एक प्रोडक्ट बनाते समय कौन से एक्टिविटीज है उसका लिस्ट मुझे बनाना पड़ेगा. The activities which are involved in product A will be not same to activities involved into product B, or will be not same for activities involved into product C. Means what? Product wise I need to identify the activities. Getting this? So for activities which are useful or which are involved in activity product A will be not the activities in product B. Getting this? But what was happening in traditional costing technique, what was happening in machining बोले तो कुछ प्रोडक्ट ऐसे होते थे कि जिसमें मशीनरिंग हम लोग यूज ही नहीं करते, but the charge of that machining was also allocated to that department, and that was not good. So for this purpose, we need to understand the careful steps in activity based costing technique. So very first step is the we have to identify major activities involved into these specific production output. And once we identify this, then what we have to do, we have to allocate the manufacturing overhead cost. So out of this activity, which is indirect cost of that activities and in direct cost of this activity, we have to identify. We have to segregate the direct cost of these activities and indirect cost of these activities. And what we have to do, indirect cost is nothing but your overhead cost, and it's our job to allocate this indirect cost or overhead cost to respective departments through the cost pools. So we have to identify the cost pool into that activity. And once we identified the cost pool of these among of these activities, then we have to identify the cost drivers. Cost drivers means what? These cost drivers are accurately measure of each activity's contribution to finished goods. हर एक एक्टिविटी का कंट्रीब्यूशन फिनिश गुड्स बनाते समय कितना कंट्रीब्यूशन होता है, that I can understand with the help of these cost drivers, and they can also compute the product activity based production overhead rate. So just see in the previous slide we have calculated the cost driver. So these are the allocated cost drivers. Okay, indirect cost rate and indirect cost rate here in activity based costing technique, and this we have allocated, and for this we have used this material cost, labor hours and order cost. These are the cost drivers. Okay, here in traditional based costing system we have used only one cost driver, that is called as the labor hours. So once we have identified the activities, then we have to identify the cost pool, and once we identified this cost pool, then we have to identify the cost driver. So these are the cost drivers. Okay, now then once we identified the cost drivers, then we have to assign manufacturing overheads to the each activity cost. तो एक बार कॉस्ट ड्राइवर आइडेंटिफाई करने के बाद मुझे क्या करना है, वो ओवरहेड जो कॉस्ट है मुझे अलोकेट करना है. कैसे अलोकेशन करना है, दैट इज देयर. यहाँ पे जो किया ना, ये वाला लास्ट टेबल. सो दिस इज द लास्ट जो टेबल है दो बॉटम के, दैट इज नथिंग बट अलोकेशन ऑफ ओवरहेड्स टू द कॉस्ट ड्राइवर्स. कॉस्ट ड्राइवर को हम लोगों ने ओवरहेड डाल दिया. सो दीज आर दी स्टेप्स इन एक्टिविटी बेस्ड कॉस्टिंग. क्या करना है, पहले मुझे एक्टिविटी लिस्ट डाउन करना है. एक्टिविटी लिस्ट डाउन करने के बाद कॉस्ट पूल फाइंड आउट करना है. कॉस्ट पूल फाइंड आउट करने के बाद कॉस्ट ड्राइवर फाइंड आउट करना है. कॉस्ट ड्राइवर फाइंड आउट करने के बाद अलोकेशन करना है. सो दीज आर दी 4 एक्टिविटीज और 4 स्टेप्स in activity based costing. Now just look at this chart, how the overhead cost is allocated to certain products. Just go through this slide, in which in this slide you can find the activity cost pools, then cost drivers, and how we are going to allocate this activity cost pools to the cost drivers, activity cost pools to the cost drivers in the products. So here see we have 4 activity cost pools. First I need to understand the activities, and then I need to understand this activity cost pool. कौन सा एक्टिविटी खर्चा पूल करके खींच लेता है, या कौन सा एक्टिविटीज के ऊपर हम लोग overhead allocate कर सकते हैं, because we have to understand the value added activities and non value added activities. Okay, so here in overhead cost, activity cost pools are, for example, we are doing the manufacturing of axles and steering wheels. ये हम लोग बनाते हैं. तो ये बनाते समय what are the activities? So there are certain common activities like purchasing, storing, manufacturing and supervising. So these are the activities which involve in the manufacturing of axle as well as steering wheels. So purchasing is the one activity. For it, activity cost pool is the purchase department. Who will place the orders. Then for next activity is the storing. For this storing activity, which is the cost pool, that is the store department. Okay. Now next is the machining activity. For machining activity, activity cost pool is that production department. Try to understand. And next one is the supervising activity. For this cost pool is the direct labors and indirect labors supervising. So these are the activities and these are the activity cost pools. Now to allocate these expenses of overhead on purchase department, store department, machining department and supervising department, we need to create or we need to identify the cost drivers. How can I distribute the overhead of purchase department on product on axle and steering wheel? For that purpose, we need to identify the cost driver among the purchasing department. तो purchase department के लिए कौन सा cost driver हम लोग use कर सकते हैं? That is number of purchase orders. How many orders you have placed as of now? On the basis of number of orders of purchased material, I can allocate the cost. It may happen that in case of axle, raw material required for axle, it we have placed only 2 orders. And raw material required for the steering wheel, we have purchased 10 orders. Getting this? So at that time, we can't distribute the amount equally, because for axle, we have given only 2 orders and for steering wheel, we have given 10 orders. So on the basis of this ordering of input, I can use the cost driver. So in case of purchasing, we can use cost driver as a number of purchase order. Now let us go for storing department. Now store is one department which can also absorb some activities, some cost. So here, what is the amount of square footage? Kitna area hai store ka? Storing means what? This is the department where you can store raw material as well as finished goods. Getting this? Now, you may have common store for 3 products. Getting this? You may have common store. For example, 10,000 square foot का मेरा store है, उसमें से 5,000 square foot मैं use कर रहा हूँ Excel के लिए, या 10,000 square foot में 7,000 I am using for steering wheel and only 3,000 I am using for Excel. अभी ये storing का cost लगाते समय 50-50 नहीं कर सकते हम लोग. Getting this? So how much area is occupied by Excel? Only 3,000 square foot. And how much area is occupied by steering wheel? 7,000. So on the basis of this proportion, I have to allocate this cost. Getting this? And the next one is the machining hours. Out of, let us say 5,000 hours, I have used 2,000 hours for Excel and I have used 8,000 hours for steering wheel. So whatever is the overhead, indirect overhead cost of machining, I will allocate. No, I will not allocate equal proportion of machining hours to Excel and steering wheel. So in that case also, on the basis of machining hours of Excel would be different and machining hours of steering wheel would be different. On the basis of actual machining hours, I have to allocate the cost. And last one is the supervising. Getting this? So supervising me, for example, there are 3 supervisors engaged in the Excel line and 5 supervisors are engaged in the steering wheel. So steering wheel line. Now, whatever is the supervising cost, this is indirect cost. So on the basis of number of employees are working there, number of employees who are working into that Excel division and how many employees are working into steering wheel division. On the basis of number of employee, I can allocate this cost. Okay, so this is something about cost drivers. And by using the cost drivers, I can allocate this cost to the certain activities or certain products. Clear everybody? So this is called as a overhead allocation cost, or this is also called as a apportionment of overheads with ABs. Yes, students, clear everybody? Activity cost pool and activity cost drivers and products. Tell me. Clear this concept of overhead
Yes,
allocation?
sir.
Yes. Now, here I can use, yes, here I can use, just go through this slide. Here, how to find out the activity cost pools, how to identify the activity cost pools, and how to identify the cost drivers. In case of manufacturing industries, which will be my activity cost pool? As an accountant, as an internal auditor of that organization, I need to identify these activity cost pools and activity cost drivers. Just read this slide, so you will understand which are the tentative activity cost pools. Yes. See, so these are the different types of activity cost pool. Again, I am saying activity cost pool for each and every product will not be same. Getting this? So activity cost pools will be different for each and every activity. So as a accountant, you need to identify the activity cost pool. फर्स्ट क्या करना है आपको? एक्टिविटीज आइडेंटिफाई करना है. एक्टिविटी आइडेंटिफाई करने के बाद एक्टिविटी कॉस्ट पूल आइडेंटिफाई करना है. गेटिंग दिस? सो एक्टिविटी कॉस्ट पूल हेल्प अस टू अलोकेट द ओवरहेड्स, और उसी एक्टिविटी कॉस्ट पूल को ओवरहेड्स अलोकेशन करते समय व्हाट विल बी द कॉस्ट ड्राइवर्स, अगेन यू नीड टू आइडेंटिफाई. So in case of ordering and receiving material cost pools, number of purchase order will be cost driver. I can't use different cost drivers to the different activity cost pool. So I need to identify which is the suitable cost driver which we can apply to the activity cost pools. Then setting up and machinery cost pool ke liye number of setups we have done. How many times we have done the machinery setup. Then machining cost pool, machining hours, how much time we have run this machinery. What is the machinery hours utilized for the product. Then assembling cost pool, it is the number of parts we have assembled. How many parts we are assembled under product A and how many parts we are assembling in product B. For example, Scorpio. How many parts are there? There are 200 parts which we have to assemble. In case of Bolero, only 150 parts we have to assemble. Getting this? So number of parts we are assembling, on the basis of this, I can allocate the cost. Then inspection and testing. Kitna test hai? For product A, 5 tests. For product B, only 2 tests. So on the basis of this cost driver, I can allocate this. Then painting cost. Number of parts we have to paint. Scorpio, 10 parts. Bolero, only 2 parts or 3 parts. Getting this? And supervising cost, that is the direct labor hours cost. So in this way, by activity wise, activity cost pool wise, then we'll go for activity cost driver and then we will allocate the proper allocation of the overheads. So this is the overhead allocation. Now, how to compute overhead rates. Now what we have to do to compute the overhead rates, there is the one formula, that is estimated overhead per activity divided by expected use of cost drivers per activity. कितना use होता है, and then we will get the activity overhead rate. So this is the formula to find out the activity based overhead rate. So by using this formula, I can allocate these overheads. Then setting up overhead rates. Now we have to set, as an accountant, we need to set the overhead rates. So to set the overhead rates, we have three categories. First one is the plant-wide, departmental, and activity based. But now we are more giving focus on the activity based rates. Okay, in plant wide rate, what we will be doing, it is very much simple, because on the basis of the plant we will allocate plant A, plant B, department में फिर department A, department B, department C. So it is internal things. Plant wide means what? We will identify the plant. If activities or if the cost is in general in nature, that time I can use plant wide. If cost is in specific nature, that time we will have to go departmental wise. If the cost overheads are related to your specific departments, that time you have to go for departmental. And if overheads are more specific about the activities, that time you have to go for activity based rates. So these are the three categories. If general nature के plant category level के अगर expenses होंगे तो plant wide जाएंगे, अगर डिपार्टमेंटल के हिसाब से रहेंगे तो डिपार्टमेंटल जाएंगे, और एक्टिविटी के बेसिस से अगर है तो we will go at activity based. Now see here how we can allocate the overheads in plant wide rate. Just look towards the diagram. Yes, see here we have two activities, that is inspection cost and engineering cost. So this addition of these two, that comes to the total overheads. And if we allocate this cost on the basis of plant wide, at that time these expenses will be equally distributed. For example, under these overheads we have three activities. For example, mixing, forming, and packaging. Then packing and mixing activities allocated to both the products. Forming activities also allocated to both the product 1, product 2, and packaging activities also allocated to both the products. Means what? Here we are allocating the cost product wise and on the basis of equally distribution. Something like it is equally distribution. Now all products pass through the same department and use same resources in the same way in each, or overhead costs are small. So this is how we can allocate the plant wide overhead cost. Then second one is the departmental rates. Just see here, those activities which are not related to that particular department, we should not charge this cost to that department. Let us go for forming activity, mixing, forming, packing. अभी forming activity में क्या है? Forming activity is not related to product 2. That time I should not allocate the cost of forming activity to product 2. So because here you are going very much specific. So इसको बोलते हैं departmental wise rates, overhead rate. हम लोग उसमें क्या करते हैं, जो एक्टिविटी पर्टिकुलर डिपार्टमेंट में हुआ नहीं उसके ऊपर हम लोग चार्ज नहीं लगा सकते इन केस ऑफ दिस एक्टिविटी या डिपार्टमेंटल ओवरहेड कॉस्ट रेट्स. क्लियर एवरीबॉडी? तो प्लांट वाइड में हम लोगों ने क्या किया था, जितने भी प्रोडक्ट है हर प्रोडक्ट को इक्वली डिस्ट्रीब्यूट किया था या कुछ प्रोपोर्शन में डिस्ट्रीब्यूट किया था. लेकिन डिपार्टमेंट वाइज हम लोगों को क्या करना है, जो एक्टिविटी पर्टिकुलर डिपार्टमेंट में हुआ नहीं उसके ऊपर हम लोग नहीं लगा सकते चार्ज. ओके, नाउ next question is, what will be the situation where we can use ABC costing? हम लोग एक्टिविटी बेस्ड कॉस्टिंग टेक्निक कब और कहाँ पे यूज कर सकते हैं? ऑलरेडी वी हैव डिस्कस्ड बिफोर आल्सो, before last two lectures also we have discussed where are the applications of activity based costing. So first one is, let us see, अगर वहां पे product lines अलग अलग है और volume of production is also more and manufacturing activity is very much complex. So this is the scenario where I have to go by activity based costing. पहला चीज क्या है, मेरा product line अलग अलग है, उसके बाद मेरा वॉल्यूम ऑफ प्रोडक्शन इज डिफरेंट एंड इट इज ह्यूज, एंड थर्ड वन इज द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एक्टिविटी, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग प्रोसेस इज वेरी मच कॉम्प्लेक्स. At that time it's better to go by activity based costing. Second one is that under this production department there are various production line, product A, product B, product C, product D. So on the basis of number of production line, if number of production line are more, at that time again your activities or your cost becomes very much complex. So if the product lines are numerous and diversifications are there into your product, modifications are there, and it require different degree of support service as per the product specification, as per the diversity of product. You need to use different support services, and support services of each and every department would be different. Getting this? So on the basis of these support services we have to allocate the cost. So we cannot allocate the support services of product A to product B if it is not utilized. Getting this? So प्रोडक्ट लाइन जितने भी ज्यादा रहेंगे, प्रोडक्ट में जितना भी डाइवर्सिफिकेशन रहेगा, और प्रोडक्ट लाइंस अगर वेरियस सपोर्ट सर्विस लगाते हैं तो एट दैट टाइम वी कैन यूज दिस एक्टिविटी बेस्ड कॉस्टिंग. देन हियर ओवरहेड कॉस्ट constituent significant portion of total cost. Means what? If the proportion of overhead cost, that is indirect cost, if it is more than direct cost, that time you don't have option rather than going for the activity based costing. अगर मेरे डायरेक्ट कॉस्ट का प्रोपोर्शन इनडायरेक्ट कॉस्ट से बहुत कम रहेगा, means what? Here your most of the expenses are indirect cost. At that time you have to go by activity based costing. These things we have already discussed in the previous lecture as well. Next, the manufacturing process or the number of products has been changed significantly. Means what? Your manufacturing process is not same. Every year, every month, every week you are making little bit changes. You are just identifying the value added activities and non value added activities, and accordingly you are making little bit changes into manufacturing process. At that time you have to go by ABC costing. Then production or marketing managers are ignoring data provided by the traditional cost system, and they are using cost information to make the pricing decisions. If the production manager and marketing manager wanted to decide the exact cost of production, because on the basis of this exact cost of production, they wanted to decide the selling price of your product. To decide the accurate selling price of product, to decide the accurate cost of production system, at that time traditional cost system is not useful, because it should not give the accurate cost allocation techniques. That time I have to go by the activity based costing. So these are the scenarios where I have to use ABC costing. So first one is the, अगर मेरा प्रोडक्ट लाइन अलग अलग होता है, वॉल्यूम ज्यादा है और मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सिस्टम बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स रहेगी, तो मुझे ABC यूज करना है. प्रोडक्शन लाइन में नंबर ऑफ प्रोडक्ट्स ज्यादा है, डाइवर्सिफिकेशन मेरे प्रोडक्ट में है, और सपोर्ट सर्विसेज भी बहुत होते हैं. That time I can go for activity based costing techniques. Next, ओवरहेड कॉस्ट रॉ मटेरियल कॉस्ट से ज्यादा है, तभी मुझे एबीसी में जाना है. उसके बाद मेरा मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सिस्टम जो है, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग पैटर्न बार बार अगर चेंज होता है, दैट टाइम आल्सो आई हैव नो स्कोप रादर देन एबीसी. उसके बाद एग्जैक्ट कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन डिसाइड करना है, सेलिंग प्राइस डिसाइड करना है, प्रॉफिट कंट्रीब्यूशन डिसाइड करना है, दैट टाइम आल्सो आई हैव टू गो बाय ABC. So these are the scenarios, these are the situations where I have to go by activity based costing. Now, so this was something about activity based costing in case of manufacturing industry. Now, what is the situation of activity based costing in service industry? Service industry means what? Where you are selling the services. As of now, just try to understand. As of now, we are not using too much activity based costing in service industry. हम लोग service industry में उतना हम लोग use नहीं करते हैं. But we can use activity based costing in service industry. अभी अगर देखा जाए तो 99% manufacturing industry are implementing ABC costing. But if you talk about service industry are not so many which are using this ABC costing. Service industry में ABC costing जितना चाहिए उतना अभी तक implementation नहीं होता है. But what I'm saying, I can use this activity based costing into service industry as well. Getting this? So, कैसे कर सकते हैं? So there is also scope to use activity based costing into service industry. So here what we have to find, we have to identify the activities into services, or we have to identify the list of services, cost pools and cost drivers, similar like manufacturing industry. जैसे कि मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंडस्ट्री में हम लोग एक्टिविटीज फाइंड आउट करते थे और वो लिस्ट डाउन करते थे. In the same manner, here also I have to identify the services and service cost pools and service cost drivers. We can do this. Okay. As well as a larger proportion of overhead costs are facility level cost, यानी सर्विस लेवल. तो इनडायरेक्ट कॉस्ट क्यों आती है? बिकॉज फैसिलिटी लेवल कॉस्ट है, सर्विस लेवल कॉस्ट. अगर ये फैसिलिटी कॉस्ट अगर ज्यादा है, दैट कैन नॉट बी डायरेक्टली ट्रेस टू द स्पेसिफिक सर्विसेज. कुछ ऐसे कॉस्ट आपके यहाँ पे रहेंगे सर्विसेज में which cannot be directly linked to the specific services. Directly particular services पे हम लोग नहीं डाल सकते. At that time we can go by activity based costing. Although initially developed by and implemented by the manufacturing industry, ABC is technique which is used solely for manufacturing industry. But nowadays also some companies are trying to use this ABC costing in service industries as well. As well as in general approach, identifying the activities, activity cost pools and cost drivers will be same as like manufacturing. यहाँ पे भी जो manufacturing industry में किया, cost pool find out करना, उसके बाद cost driver find out करना और productions ये करना, यही activity service industry में भी मुझे करना है. Similar kind of technique is there. Similar kind of steps are there in manufacturing industry as well as in service industry. Then labeling the activities as a value added and non-value added activities. Once we are listing down the activities, at that time we have to bifurcate value added activities and non-value added activity. Value added activity यानी जो activity करने से product का value बढ़ती है, and non-value added activity में यानी जो activity करने से मेरे product का value बढ़ती नहीं. That is non-value added activities. And trying to reduce or eliminate non-value added activities. हम लोगों को क्या करना है? We have to focus on non-value added activities and we should reduce this. अगर वो activity निकाल दिया तो क्या हो जाएगा? Automatically unnecessary cost we can save and cost of production will be less or small. So this is the scope to implement ABC costing in service industry. Nowadays, multinational companies are trying to use this ABC in service industry as well. Getting this? So this is the scope of ABC in service industry as well. Now, what are the benefits of ABC? Just read this slide. What are the benefits of this ABC? अगर ABC costing हम लोगों ने implement किया तो benefit क्या हो सकते हैं? Just read this slide. Okay, so just see, we have already discussed this benefit as well. क्या होती है एक्टिविटी बेस्ड कॉस्टिंग से? क्या होता है, इनजस्टिस कोई भी एक्टिविटी के ऊपर नहीं होता है, कोई भी डिपार्टमेंट के ऊपर इनजस्टिस नहीं होता है. गेटिंग दिस? इफ कॉस्ट ऑफ दिस वन डिपार्टमेंट इज 5 rupees and we are allocating 10 rupees on this department, तो क्या हो जाएगा, ओवरहेड्स का जो इनडायरेक्ट कॉस्ट 5 रुपए आती है, लेकिन मैंने अगर 10 रुपया डाला तो क्या हो जाएगा, दैट डिपार्टमेंट नेवर कम्स इनटू द प्रॉफिट, because whatever earning is there, that is utilized to recover the cost or to pay the cost. तो ये इनजस्टिस नहीं होता है एक्टिविटी बेस्ड कॉस्टिंग से, जो कि ट्रेडिशनल कॉस्टिंग में आता है. So activity based costing help us to find out the true cost of individual product and services. Exact and accurately निकालने के लिए यूज होती है. As well as कंपनी एबीसी क्यों यूज करती है? फर्स्ट इज टू आइडेंटिफाई स्पेसिफिक प्रोडक्ट दैट आर अनप्रॉफिटेबल. कौन से प्रोडक्ट प्रॉफिटेबल है और कौन से प्रोडक्ट प्रॉफिटेबल नहीं है. मीन्स व्हाट? टू टेक मेक और बाय डिसीजन और टू क्लोज, बनाना है या क्लोज करना है कंपनी. That I can decide on the basis of by using activity based costing. Which are the profitable products and which are loss making product, I can identify by this way, by using ABC costing technique. Then ABC also help us to increase or to improve the production process efficiency. Means what? We can identify whether these resources are used 100% or not, or whether the resources are idle. That idle resources you can identify with the help of ABC. Idle means what? The resources whose cost is bearing to me, but I am not getting opportunity to utilize these resources. यानी मशीनरी ऐसे ही खाली चल रही है, रॉ मटेरियल नहीं मिल रहा है. लेबर ऐसे ही खाली बैठा है, उसको रॉ मटेरियल नहीं मिल रहा है. गेटिंग दिस? इंस्पेक्शन डिपार्टमेंट वाला नीचे खाली बैठा है, उसको इंस्पेक्शन के लिए मटेरियल ही नहीं आ रहा है. सो दिस इज द कॉल्ड एज अननेसेसरी और द यू नो आइडल एक्टिविटीज. अगर आइडल एक्टिविटीज हमारे कंपनी में रहेंगे तो वो क्या करते हैं, मेरे कॉस्ट बढ़ाते हैं. So by using this activity based costing, I can find the idle activities and I will try. Yes, students, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
You can see this screen as well, na?
Yes, sir.
Okay. बीच में डिसकंटिन्यू हुआ था इसलिए बोला. अभी देखो, व्हाट आर द बेनिफिट्स, जस्ट रीड द बेनिफिट्स. ऑलरेडी हम लोगों ने बहुत बार इसके ऊपर डिस्कशन किया है. क्या बेनिफिट्स हैं? बेटर मैनेजमेंट डिसीजन ले सकते हैं, मोर एक्यूरेट कॉस्टिंग हो जाएगा. अगर मोर एक्यूरेट कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन निकाल दिया तो सेलिंग प्राइस एक्यूरेट डिसाइड करेंगे. वो सेलिंग प्राइस एक्यूरेट डिसाइड करने के बाद वी कैन टेक द डिसीजन वेदर मेक और बाय, अगर हम खुद बनाएंगे या बाहर से ऑर्डर लेंगे. Getting this? If the cost of production is more in your organization at that time, and if the same product is available at cheaper cost from outside, at that time I should buy the product and I should stop this making the product. ये decision हम लोग यहाँ पे ले सकते हैं, benefits हो सकते हैं. Then ABC leads to more activity cost pools with more relevant cost driver. हम लोग क्या करते हैं, लिस्ट ऑफ एक्टिविटीज आइडेंटिफाई करके उसके कॉस्ट पूल्स फाइंड आउट करते हैं, और वी कैन यूज रिलेवेंट कॉस्ट ड्राइवर्स टू रिलेवेंट कॉस्ट पूल. सुटेबल कॉस्ट पूल यूज करने से क्या होता है, एक्यूरेट कॉस्ट एलोकेशन होता है. as well as ABC leads to enhanced control of overhead cost. Overhead cost के ऊपर हम लोग कंट्रोल ला सकते हैं. Okay, because here overhead cost can be more often traced directly to the activities. Particular cost का overhead कितना है I can identify, so that I can also focus. I can give the suggestion to that activity in charge. You have to control this cost up to certain level, so you can decide the target to reduce the cost. It will also help through ABC costing. Then ABC leads to better management decision by providing more accurate product cost. Management decision लेने के लिए, क्योंकि if you know exact your costing, then you can take the decision. क्लोज करना है और प्रोडक्शन कंटिन्यू करना है, प्रोडक्शन स्टॉप करना है, बैच में प्रोडक्शन करना है, या इंडिविजुअल प्रोडक्शन करना है, ग्रुप में करना है, या प्रोडक्शन स्टॉप करना है और बाहर से मटेरियल मंगवाना है, ये सारी एक्टिविटीज. उसके बाद सेलिंग प्राइस कितना रखना है, प्रॉफिट लेवल कितना रखना है, और उसके बाद एक्सपेंशन के लिए कितना स्कोप मुझे मिलेगा, ये सारी एक्टिविटी करने के लिए एबीसी कॉस्टिंग हेल्प करती है. सो दीज आर दी बेनिफिट्स ऑफ एक्टिविटी बेस्ड कॉस्टिंग. क्या है? मैनेजमेंट डिसीजन ले सकते हैं अच्छा खासा, सेलिंग प्राइस डिसाइड कर सकते हैं, मेक और बाय डिसीजन ले सकते हैं, whether to prepare product in our factory or whether we should buy this product for outsource. Then कॉस्ट पूल आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे, सुटेबल कॉस्ट ड्राइवर आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे, ओवरहेड के ऊपर कंट्रोल ला सकते हैं, क्योंकि क्या होता है, कौन सा ओवरहेड कौन से एक्टिविटी का कितना खर्चा आता है, दैट आई कैन आइडेंटिफाई. उसके हिसाब से हम लोग टारगेट सेट करेंगे, उसको सजेशन दे देंगे. प्रोडक्ट की कॉस्ट, सेलिंग प्राइस ऑन प्रॉफिट डिसाइड करने के लिए, ये जो डिसाइड मैनेजमेंट डिसीजन से, ये डिसीजन लेने के लिए एक्टिविटी बेस्ड कॉस्टिंग हेल्प करती है. ओके, now what are the applications? Okay, now what are the applications of ABC costing? तो एबीसी कॉस्टिंग यूज करने से बेटर एब्सॉर्प्शन ऑफ कॉस्ट होती है. बेटर एब्सॉर्प्शन यानी रिस्पेक्टिव कॉस्ट एक्टिविटीज विल एब्सॉर्ब द कॉस्ट, जो उनका रियल खर्चा है वो एब्सॉर्ब करके लेते हैं, यानी इनजस्टिस डिपार्टमेंट के ऊपर नहीं रहती. सेकेंड, it allows companies to form a more appropriate pricing strategy. Pricing strategy decide करने के लिए ABC costing help हो जाए to decide the pricing of various products, because your product is going through various diversification. Product 1, base model, middle model, top model, super model, super to super model, ऐसे मॉडल होते हैं ना हर एक प्रोडक्ट में. तो ये मॉडल डिसाइड करने के लिए, और उसका प्राइसिंग, हाउ मच विल बी द वेरिएशंस इन द प्राइसिंग. बेस मॉडल और मिडिल मॉडल में कितना फर्क है, मिडिल मॉडल और टॉप मॉडल में कितना फर्क है, ट्राइंग गेटिंग गेटिंग. सो ये उसके हिसाब से, मॉडल के हिसाब से हम लोग उसकी प्राइस में भी वेरिएशंस होना चाहिए, और प्राइस में वेरिएशंस होने के लिए मुझे कॉस्ट पता होनी चाहिए. तो कॉस्ट अगर मुझे पता है तो I can distribute the overhead and I will decide the price. The costing system is used in target. ABC costing कहाँ पे यूज कर सकते हैं? टारगेट कॉस्टिंग करना है, प्रोडक्ट कॉस्टिंग करना है, प्रोडक्ट लाइन प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी एनालिसिस करना है, कस्टमर प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी एनालिसिस करना है, और सर्विस प्राइसिंग करना है. So these are the areas where I can use activity based costing. यहाँ पे हम लोग क्या करते हैं, एक्टिविटी बेस्ड कॉस्टिंग टेक्निक यूज कर सकते हैं. टारगेट कॉस्टिंग दैट वी हैव already studied in the previous topic, target based costing. In product costing, product line profitability analysis, customer profitability analysis, whether customer is in the profit or not, और the service pricing, ये सारी चीजें का कॉस्टिंग निकालने के लिए हम लोग एबीसी कॉस्टिंग टेक्निक यूज कर सकते हैं. Now, this ABC costing technique also helps to identify inefficient products and departments and activity. कौन सा एक्टिविटी ऐसे है कि जो inefficiently काम करते हैं, कौन से डिपार्टमेंट्स ऐसे हैं, कौन से एक्टिविटीज ऐसे हैं कि these are not profit making activities or profit making products. If these are the loss making activity where I can take the decision whether to buy or whether to make or whether to close down, to take this decision ABC costing is helpful. Now, next is it helps to allocate more resources on profitable products. कौन से प्रॉफिटेबल प्रोडक्ट है, कौन से नॉन प्रॉफिटेबल प्रोडक्ट है? तो एज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन आई नीड टू फोकस ऑन प्रॉफिटेबल प्रोडक्ट. जो है उसका लाइन कभी भी बंद नहीं पड़ना चाहिए, उसका मटेरियल कभी स्टॉप नहीं होना चाहिए, उसके एक्टिविटीज कभी मीन्स व्हाट, आई कैन गिव द प्रायोरिटीज, फर्स्ट प्रायोरिटीज टू द प्रॉफिटेबल प्रोडक्ट, क्योंकि वो प्रॉफिट जनरेट करते हैं. प्रॉफिटेबल प्रोडक्ट्स, प्रॉफिटेबल डिपार्टमेंट्स और प्रॉफिटेबल एक्टिविटीज. To identify this kind of products, departments and activities, ABC costing help us. Profitable activities and non-profitable activities. अगर profitable activities means what, where I have to pay attention more. Getting this? क्योंकि उससे मुझे ज़्यादा revenue मिलता है. Then it helps to control the cost at any product, at any per product level and on the departmental level. Department level का और product level का costing कंट्रोल करने के लिए, कॉस्टिंग कंट्रोल करने के लिए we can use this cost, as well as it helps to find out the unnecessary cost that may be eliminated. कौन से कॉस्ट हम लोग रिमूव कर सकते हैं, ये अननेसेसरी कॉस्ट फाइंड आउट करने के लिए एबीसी यूज करते हैं. एंड इट हेल्प्स इन फिक्सिंग ऑफ द प्राइसिंग ऑफ द प्रोडक्ट. ये हम लोगों ने कई बार डिस्कस किया. सो दीज आर द एप्लीकेशन. एंड लास्ट टॉपिक फ्रॉम दिस यूनिट, दिस इज द limitations of ABC. Just go through this slide. What are the limitations? If you wanted to implement these ABC costing techniques, at that time we have to understand the weaknesses of the system or the limitations of the system. Just go read this slide. Okay, see here. What are the limitations? As compared to traditional costing system, ABC is more expensive. क्यों? क्योंकि मुझे स्टडी ज्यादा करना है, एक्टिविटीज फाइंड आउट करना है, एक्टिविटी कॉस्ट फुल फाइंड आउट करना है, एक्टिविटी कॉस्ट ड्राइवर फाइंड आउट करके मुझे अलोकेशन करना है. जितना भी मेरी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सिस्टम कॉम्प्लेक्स रहेगी, उतना मुझे इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में प्रॉब्लम आ जाएगा, बिकॉज इट इज मोर एक्सपेंसिव. व्हाई इट इज मोर एक्सपेंसिव? You should have to spend that much of time getting this. So here, and in case of the multinational organization, there are multiple activities are there, and हर एक activity multiple यानी number of activities are involved. We are not using only 2 to 3 common activities. We are identifying the activities, multiple activities. We are identifying multiple cost drivers, and then we are allocating. Means what, it takes time. So that it is time consuming and expensive activity. But once it is set one time, तो हर टाइम मुझे क्या है, अगर मेरा प्रोडक्शन लाइन चेंज किया, कुछ एक्टिविटी स्किप किए, उसके बाद कुछ नए नए एक्टिविटी पूल्स आ गए, तो क्या होता है, मुझे हर बार एक्टिविटी एबीसी कॉस्टिंग एडजस्ट करनी पड़ेगी, मुझे हर बार एक्टिविटी कॉस्ट रिवाइज करनी पड़ेगी. मीन्स व्हाट, व्हेनेवर यू आर गोइंग टू चेंज द प्रोसेसेस, whenever you are going to skip the activities or add the activities, at that time I have to revise the activity based cost. हर बार मुझे एक बार बनाया तो उसका काम हो गया, ऐसा नहीं है in this case. तो मुझे जो कुछ अगर मॉडिफिकेशंस आ गया, डिलीशन आ गया, एडिशन आ गया, तभी मुझे हर बार मुझे ये एबीसी कॉस्टिंग रिवाइज करनी पड़ती है. जैसे कि ट्रेडिशनल सिस्टम में हम लोगों ने एक बार सेट कर दिया, एक साल के लिए वही यूज करते हैं या 2 साल के लिए वही यूज करते हैं. But I can't use this here. Some arbitrary overhead costs will continue even though more overhead costs are assigned, can be assigned directly to the products through the multiple activity costs. कुछ ऐसे भी कॉस्ट होते हैं, अलोकेशन करने के बाद भी कुछ कॉस्ट और भी रह जाती है, because not to able to find out the exact cost drivers and cost pool. So there may be certain cost which may be remain as it is, which we have to allocate again, for which activity cost pool and activity cost driver I am not getting, because it may be incidental cost, कभी कभी आती है. This is not regular cost. At that time, it will be difficult to use ABC. So these are the limitations of ABC cost analysis. More expensive है, जितने भी एक्टिविटीज ज्यादा रहेंगे उतना ज्यादा टाइम जाएगा, उतना इन्वॉल्वमेंट ज्यादा रहेगा और उतना टाइम कंज्यूमिंग प्रोसेस. Or still, by using the number of multiple activities, by you finding the number of cost drivers, still there are some of the overheads. There will be question how to utilize, how to allocate these overheads. So these are the very small limitations, very few limitations. But most probably, activity-based costing is useful, and 99% industries are using activity-based costing. Okay, it is more accurate. Okay, so this was about unit number 3. So we have finished third unit, activity-based costing. It was very small unit. Okay, in activity-based costing, what we have studied? We have studied about डायरेक्ट कॉस्ट, इनडायरेक्ट कॉस्ट किसको बोलते हैं. उसके बाद हम लोगों ने एक्टिविटी बेस्ड कॉस्टिंग और ट्रेडिशनल कॉस्टिंग सिस्टम में क्या फर्क है, डिफरेंस क्या है, ये भी हम लोगों ने देखा है. ट्रेडिशनल सिस्टम कैसे चलती थी वो भी हम लोगों ने देखा है. ट्रेडिशनल प्रोडक्शन सिस्टम कैसे चलती थी वो भी देखा है. और यस, दिस वाज द सिलेबस. कंसेप्ट देखा है, पर्पस देखा है, एडवांटेज, बेनिफिट्स, रिलेवेंस इन डिसीजन मेकिंग देखा है, एप्लीकेशंस देखा है, ट्रेडिशनल कॉस्टिंग सिस्टम, एबीसी कॉस्टिंग सिस्टम. Then we have seen the comparative analysis. What are the benefits of traditional? What are the benefits of activity-based system over the traditional basis, traditional costing system and application? This was a very small unit actually. So we have finished third unit. Next lecture we will start with next unit, that is activity based costing or strategic cost management in other service industries. कौन से सर्विस इंडस्ट्री हम लोगों को देखना है? 1 मिनट. तो ये एग्रीकल्चरल इंडस्ट्रीज, एग्रीकल्चरल सर्विस इंडस्ट्री में स्ट्रेटेजिक कॉस्ट मैनेजमेंट कैसा होता है, इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी सेक्टर में कैसे करते हैं, पावर सेक्टर में कैसे करते हैं, ऑटोमोबाइल सेक्टर में कैसे करते हैं, हेल्थ केयर सेक्टर में कैसा करना चाहिए, हॉस्पिटैलिटी सेक्टर में और एजुकेशन सेक्टर में स्ट्रेटेजिक कॉस्ट मैनेजमेंट, हाउ टू यूटिलाइज. This is the syllabus of 4th unit. Okay, so maybe our next lecture will be on coming Tuesday. Tomorrow there will be no lecture, and on Monday also there will be no lecture. Okay, we will have next lecture on coming Tuesday. Okay, so let's stop here, and I will communicate to sir also this. Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir.